Hello YouTube, it's Clormo here with another Logic Pro X tutorial in my Logic Pro X tutorial series season number 2, and this tutorial is going to cover the Retro Synth, which is kind of in between of what the ESM and the ES1 cover. And the reason I want to cover it now, it's just because of that. It's you're going to see that it has a good enough interface that's simple to follow, but has in its own way like more tools, or it's a little bit more powerful than the ES1 in some areas, less complicated, but it's also more complicated than the ESM in terms of how many options you have available for you, but still pretty good synth to understand. And again, this is an intro video, so I'm going to try to keep it just what the overview, an overview of what the interface is, where the controls are. And some of this stuff we already saw in the previous ESM and ES1 video, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. And this is a synth that may have a lot of options on it, so it's just going to be an intro video type of thing, so you get the hang of it. And before I go into the video, I just wanted to announce the first winner of the $20 Amazon gift card, which is Roger Edmond. You should be seeing a screenshot with the comment that he made, which was done 3 weeks ago, and he said, subscribe, thanks for the giveaway, best wishes. You were the only one that made a comment in the appropriate video. There were a few more subscribers during the month, but if you don't make a comment, you're not participating. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if it's a little bit too complicated to understand, or if you don't want to participate, or you just want to see if it's true before you participate. But keep that in mind. If you do not comment on the video, you cannot participate for the giveaway of the gift card. So I'm sorry for those that thought that just subscribe was going to be enough. So let's go into Logic, because I'm taking too much time with this intro. Okay, so I have a Retro Synth. The interface looks like this. It's you can see at the view at 100%, it kind of takes a lot of real estate, but I want to leave it like this, obviously, because I want you to take a better look at what I do. I'm just going to close it real quick to show you that that's my track number 1, and the MIDI information that I have is exactly the same as the ES1 tutorial, so I'm not gonna give any explanation why I did that. If you need just a quick overview of what I'm trying to accomplish with this, please look at the ES1 video. So I'm gonna close my piano roll for that reason. And then on track number 2 I have an ESM, and on track number 3 I have an ES1, and that's just in case I want to compare back and forth like I did with the ESM, if I feel the need to cross-reference something. And then on track number 1 I obviously have a channel EQ if I need to cross-reference. So Retro Synth. So just as we have seen with the other previous 2 synths that I covered in my tutorials, this is there's a lot of stuff that repeats, so a lot of stuff that we have seen before, and some that is new. In the case of the Retro Synth, I'm gonna be pretty honest with you with this, and probably the more higher end, like I've said before, synths, you're not gonna see anything extremely new or completely groundbreaking. It's just that we have more of the options and have more controls, or detailed controls for the different options. So that's why I intend to make this a much quicker video than the first 2, just because of that. So going again from left to right, top to bottom, like I've done before, we have 2, you should be familiar with this by now, we have 2 shapes for our waves, right, our sine waves, and this is all contained in my oscillator controls. Same thing as with previous synths, we have a mix knob. If we have everything all the way up, it applies to shape 1, all the way down applies to just shape 2 or oscillator 2. Then I have some other controls in here, like for example we have semisols and cents. This is just our detuning options, and this is where we'll first cross-reference. This is the equivalent of my pitch buttons and that I have in the ESM and the ES1. So in this Retro Synth, I have much more final control for that. So I can go by steps, or I can also add a level of fine-tuning by sense. So you can see that this gives you a little bit more control in that detuning. And then I have my vibrato and shape modulation, and this just what it does is, like, the vibrato is gonna add that vibrato effect to my sine waves, and the vibrato, it's also controlled down here, and I can either set it all the way up to 36 semitones, or all the way down to 0, and that's gonna affect that's gonna be the amount, or the I should say that the intensity that it's gonna produce into my, or it's gonna apply into my sine wave forms, right? Depending if it's mixed or however it could be. And then in my vibrato controls, this is new. I have again some waveforms that I can apply to that amount of vibrato that I want to give to my resultant waveform. And then this is controlled either by the mod wheel or aftertouch, which also only applies to some keyboards, where you can, when you press all your key down all the way, and then you like give it more pressure down, it carries that aftertouch effect. So maybe that doesn't apply to your keyboard. And then like I said, I have my mix knob, and then shape modulation. It's controlled, or it's introduced either by the LFO, which is down here, or by the filter envelope. So this knob just says, or just sets the intensity or the amount which it's going to be affected by. So if you wanted to have a mix between the LFO and the filter envelope, between these two parameters down here, then I set it there. If I want it all the way in the filter envelope, then I set it all the way here, and vice versa with the LFO. So moving away from the oscillators, we have our filter, and same as before, we have a cutoff and resonance, but it's in graphical form. And maybe this is a good point to make a little note. It's that you have noticed that there's pretty much the same controls and options that we have seen before, but they're represented graphically, which is pretty neat and very good to understand all this gibberish, or these terms that we have discussed, that I have introduced before, that may not be that clear. And when you see it in graphical form, some people are a little bit more visual like that, and they will understand better what things are doing. So you can see what the cutoff and the resonance are doing. Like if I move my resonance point up or down, it you can see the values going up or down. And then my cutoff frequency is showing in this direction. As you can see that how that interacts with the graphical movements. And then this is our slope values, and we have all the ones that we have seen before from the ESM and the ES1. Low pass. So if I open my ESM, I had my my usual cutoff that had nothing, as far as how I could control it. It was always 24 dBs per octave. And then we saw that in the ES1 I had either 24 classic or fat, and I explained that in that video what the difference is, and that it had 18 or 12 dBs, which are different slopes. And then that's exactly the same thing here. You can see the slope, how it changes, right? The new stuff that we have is that we have a high pass dB, which is the opposite of the 12 dB low pass. So in here we're cutting the low frequencies and letting the higher frequencies pass through the cutoff, and then with the low pass is the complete opposite. And then we have our BP, which is a band pass, which is equivalent to what we could do, you know, channel EQ with any of these bands, right? So you can you see you have like a bell shape. You have an up or down um, type of curve, which is similar to what we're seeing here. Next, we have our band reject, which is equivalent to taking your channel EQ and doing something like this, right? Rejecting some particular or very specific point in your frequency. Then you have your peak, which would be the opposite, right? Your resonance is all the way up, or you can place it all the way up. It's a boost in when peak, and then band reject. It's the opposite, right? You can take it all the way down, but then you can open up, or you can fine tune that cutoff point, or how much of the frequency it's taking, right? It's either all the way closed or all the way open. Your key up, it's exactly the same as the ES1. It determines how your note pitch is going to affect how the filter interacts. And then we have this three different knobs down here. We have our envelope, which is just giving us how much of the filter envelope, or how the filter envelope is going to be affecting our result from the oscillators, and that's controlled graphically down here using the same principle as we saw in the ES1 of ADSR. So if I go into the ES1, I'm talking about this area here, and then the key would be the equivalent of this here, and then the ESR level, right? Then I have my LFO, which is controlled down here, similar to the vibrato, right? It's the vibrato is controlled here and fine-tuned down here. The LFO, it's controlled here and then fine-tuned down here. It can also be both the vibrato and the LFO can be synced, which with at the different levels, right? From 1 bar all the way to 1/64. And same with the vibrato, right? So you can choose to do that or not. If it's off sync, there will be the rate will be determined by hertz, which is also how the ES1 does it, right? You see here the sync, it's either synced or free, right? If we go on this area, will be controlled by syncing it, and then free form. So that's similar to what the ES1 did. So let me go back just one second here. The shape modulation, right? I said about LFO or filter envelope, that only applies to our pulse width. You remember I mentioned this in the ES1 tutorial, what it means, what it does. Just as a quick overview, it's just you see the different shapes. So this is the full square wave, right? How it's gonna interact, or how the sound it's gonna reach a certain point before going down and up again. So if I change that width, the pulse is gonna take less as I go all the way down here, right? So it's gonna do this and quickly die down. So my shape modulation is gonna be effective only when I'm in there, and that applies to both waveforms, obviously. So moving out of the filter parameters, we have our amplitude parameters, which is we have seen before, just controlling our volume, and this is pretty self-explanatory. I've said it before now, but we have down here a sine level, so that's gonna give us a whole new different way of controlling the volume or the amplitude by adding a level of the sine waves that I'm producing in my oscillator. Then over here we have our effect controls, which it's analog to having the overdrive, right? And an effect that we had in the ESM. Here we have a choice of a flanger or a chorus, and right now it's turned off, but obviously I'm gonna play what I have here in my MIDI information and change some of this a bit so you can see the results. And then this mix knob here is just gonna tell you how much of that effect is mixing into the waveform that I am producing, right? How much of it I want, if I wanted full flange effect or less, and so on and so forth. And then the rate, right, which is not syncable like the LFO or the vibrato. It's just at a rate of hertz. And now here we also have our glide, which we have seen before. Same type of controls, right, by milliseconds. But there's a difference here in the mode. You know, you have these different modes here. You can do the glide on both oscillators, just oscillator 1 and the sine, and then oscillator 2, or opposed, which would be it would create the unopposed effect. That's it. It just says there. And then oscillator and filter. So you have different ways of controlling your glide, which is pretty interesting, because before in the ES1 and the ESM you couldn't fine-tune your glide with this other option. So that's pretty good. So I already went through the LFO and vibrato. These are pretty much affected by these two knobs here, right? So if I have if I want to add vibrato to my wave and to my sound, I will go down here and fine tune it, and then this is the amount of in semitones that I would be affecting that vibrato overall. And then the LFO would be the same thing, right? So that it's tied to my filter. And then the filter envelope, I just again said that, so I have my envelope, how I can control it with the knob, and then I have it I can fine tune it here graphically using a ADSR envelope controls. So that's pretty neat as well. And then my amplitude envelope, which is obviously tied to my amplitude controls, same thing. I can control the envelope of my filter and my amplitude. So that's something that we saw before in the ES1, but now we can control it graphically, and we can I guess fine tune it a little bit better. And then I can affect that by my velocity. So if I put it all the way up, my velocity, it's gonna affect this all the way, right? Same with in the filter envelope. Then if I go to how I can control it here in my LFO and vibrato, right now I have it via the wheel, the mod wheel, which is something that we saw in the ES1, but I can also control it with, like I said, the aftertouch, or a combination of both. And then this is just the amount that's gonna affect it. So I don't know, I pretty much explained all of this rather quickly, because this is just the same concepts or information or terms that we have seen before. It's just a matter of you experimenting how each combination is going to affect your waveform or your oscillator result. Nothing that different from the other synths or synths that we're going to see in the future. It's just the amount of detail and controls that we have in this one that's different. So start thinking about that, because what we're doing here, I haven't said it explicitly before, it's just we're doing sound design, right? So the different synths are going to give you different options to design your own sound. So that's, even if you use it once or twice every now and then, or for every production that you make, it's good to understand, it's good to use it, because sometimes you will get tired of you may get tired of your stock software instruments and you want to create stuff yourself. So anyway, to start closing this out, we have this button here that I have completely ignored by now, and that has been on purpose, and it's my settings. So these are just global settings like we have seen in the ES1. The only difference is that we have much more power over what we can control. So we have some detuning options, some stereo spread, voice stacking. So these 3 parameters here are similar or relatable to having somebody make a few takes of their own vocals, right? So you can do that to the waveform of the oscillator by doing this. So you're repeating or you're stacking what you're producing a few times and creating obviously different kind of tone and warmth and all that to the sound that you have, which gives you a lot of power, right? And then you can also further transpose that into octaves and fine tune it by cents, and then introduce some bend by seconds also all the way, like on top of what you already have in my other options. So that's pretty good. And then you can also have you have your voices, right? So if you had chords, you would want probably the maximum amount of voices so that all the notes are audible. If you were trying to make some drum type of sounds, then you probably could leave it at mono, like for a kick or something like that. And then we have over here our controller. So I can take the mod wheel and affect my filter cutoff, my pulse width, right? My LFO rate, my vibrato rate, which would be that. And this is all the way. This is good because it lets you do a negative effect, and can also do a positive one via my mod wheel or my velocity, which is we have already discussed in the past. It's the same thing. I have the exact same options, but I can control them with via the mod wheel, the velocity, aftertouch, which I just said that may not apply to your keyboard, or a combination of all of them, right? So you can have this all at 0 and it will have no effect, or you can just do something like that and have a combination or a mix of how you're gonna affect your sound with this global control and controller settings, right? So now what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna recall the default and I'm gonna change some parameters around while this is playing, and that's gonna close the video after I'm done with that. So let's give a listen to this. That's with the default settings. I'm gonna change the different sine waves here. Add some pulse width to both. Well, let's make a real mix of it. Shape 1 alone, shape number 2 alone, mix of the 2. Let me detune a little bit all the way. We had some vibrato. Because I was controlling it only by the mod wheel and I don't have any mod wheel information. I'm just gonna let the velocity change that. Softer vibrato. Just with the filter envelope. Sync it in. Obviously non-mod wheel. or less of the mod wheel. Yeah, I was doing the filter envelope while I was moving the LFO. I meant to do the other thing. Let's limit the mixed. Let's do the reject. Let's do the band pass. Do the peak. Go back to my low pass. Bring the volume up a little bit. A more nasal sound when it's all the way there, and then now it's gonna introduce a flanger. Chorus. Got some glide to it. Change the waveform again because the LFO. Change the sync rate. Same for the waveform. I'm going to change it a little bit. Change my filter envelope. So I'm just changing, making the attack take a little bit longer, and then less sustained, and then I'm going to change my release. A little less of smaller decay. Longer release. Then my amplitude envelope. I'm gonna take the band out. No stereo spread or less stereo spread. Leave those voices off. And I just got something crazy there, some crazy sound. But you get the idea of what you can do with how much level of detail and control that you have for your sounds with the Retro Synth. It's a pretty good synth in my estimation. I believe it's one of the newer synths that Logic has. There's also a pretty good thing that Logic introduced recently, if I'm not mistaken. It's Alchemy, but obviously that's going to be a whole different tutorial. That's kind of the top of the top, I think, right now for sound design. New Sculpture, it's also good, but we're gonna be seeing all of them, you know, in intro form, and then I'll probably, what I think of doing in the more detailed videos is just choose one or two types of sounds that are commonly used, or effects are commonly used, and say, okay, so we're gonna use the Retro Synth to or DS1 or DSM to reproduce this sound or effect. And Last but not least, all of these parameters are automatable, so you can see all the possibilities that you have. And I only spoke about the analog table because you're gonna see you have this other 3 tables here, or tabs I should say. I just saw the word table and said table. But if you go, as you go by them, you're gonna see that you have some stuff changes, some stuff stays the same, aside from the colors of the interface, right? But that makes the Retro Synth become something else, or give you again more finer detail on what you can control, and which in turn is gonna give you a different result for the sound. So make sure that you experiment with those as well. And I didn't mention this in the ES1, but you have already some presets. The Retro has a lot of presets as well, pretty good amount. So I would suggest that you experiment with that as well. You can see how the parameters are set up, and then you can from there start changing stuff around and just tweaking some of these presets to achieve your own sound. So like this muted bass is actually pretty good. And there's some other bass sounds here that are good in its own merit for being a preset, so that you can tweak them around as well and get a better feeling for the instrument and how to achieve different sounds and sound designing, which is good because your synths are gonna help you in creating your own sounds, like basses, leads, pats, kick, drum sounds, many things. So with that, I'm gonna leave you for now. This video opens a new round of the $20 Amazon gift card giveaway. I should have said that in the beginning, probably. I just put a note also in the comments. But remember, be a subscriber and leave a comment so you can participate. Hope that this was helpful. And then on the next video, I'm gonna come back with another synth. You just wait and see to see what that will be. And as usual, thanks for watching, liking, supporting, doing all that good stuff. Make sure that you check me out on social media as it's shown in the graphic. See you in the next video. Peace out, YouTube.